welcome to Serious About Rugby League. It's just me again this week. The studio is out of bounds, so we're on the run making these predictions. And we start off tonight with Hull KR against Castleford. It will be me against Jack again. Jack won again last week, so he's 2-1 up. I'm hoping to claw it back this week, so I need to get my predictions more on point. We start off tonight. Hull KR are at home to Castleford. It's an interesting one. Hull KR last week again disappointed, losing at home to Huddersfield. They were the early pace setters in Super League, but Hull KR are picking up more and more injuries. Matt Parcell ruled out this week for 2 months, still missing key players in the halves, and they come up against a Castleford side who put that blip in the south of France behind them last week with a good performance at home to Wakefield. I think it was a lot closer than the 32-15 final scoreline suggested, that game against Wakefield. But Darryl Powell's side were good. They got over the line, they did enough, and I do feel like they will do enough this week at Craven Park. I just think they'll have the edge on Hull KR. I think Hull KR have got too many injuries. They've got Tony Smith is struggling somewhat with his lineup to find his best lineup, and I'm actually going to go Castleford to go there and pick up the win tonight by 10 points. Jack has gone similar to me. He's gone Hull KR by 12, so we're quite similar in that one. And then we come on to Friday night when Leeds face Warrington in an intriguing clash at Headingley. Now this is an interesting one. Leeds started the season really poor, losing it on to Hull, but since then they've actually been quite impressive. They were brilliant against Hull KR, hammering them at Headingley a couple of weeks ago, and then last week away to Salford. They weren't great in the first half, but in the second half they really took the ascendancy in the game and ended up winning that match. Whereas Warrington, who were impressive in the first couple of weeks, losing to Wigan in the opening week, as we know, losing Chris Hill in that game, who comes back this week. Then they were brilliant against St Helens. They were poor at Wakefield, and then against Toronto last week, they just did enough to get over the line. I think Warrington fans feel they should have won that game more comfortably, but they got the win in the end, and they got to Headingley this week. This is a really even match for me, struggling to pick a winner. I actually think Warrington will just have the edge with the likes of Gareth Widdop in there and Blake Austin. I think they'll really start to find their feet soon and get Warrington rolling, and I think they'll just edge it Headingley. I'm going Warrington by 2. Jack has gone Leeds by 4, so we differ on that one. And then we move on to Saturday, and an interesting one. At the Halliwell Jones Stadium, Toronto play at home to St Helens. Toronto have lost all 4 games so far, but they're steadily improving. They lost, as I mentioned, at Warrington last week, but they run the Wolves quite close. They got back level at one point, I think, and then Warrington just got over the line with 2 late tries, but they've slowly been improving, Toronto, and they'll face a St Helens side who are coming off the back of that World Club Challenge defeat to the Sydney Roosters. Saints really did match the Roosters for a good chunk of that game, but they just ran out of steam, and they'll be battered and bruised following that brutal encounter, and Toronto will look to take advantage of that. I'll go with Jack's prediction for this first. So he's gone St Helens by 18. Now, I personally don't see it being that convincing. I think Toronto will really be up for this, and they'll fancy turning Saints over. But I just don't think they'll have enough. I think Saints have just got too much quality, and I just think even if Saints click into gear for only, half an hour of that game, I think it will be enough for them to pick up the win over Toronto. I think it will be closer than what a lot of people think, but I'm going St Helens to win this game by 8 points. That then brings us on to the remaining 3 games of the weekend, and we start off with another really intriguing matchup. Huddersfield, as I mentioned before earlier, the early pace setters, the only unbeaten team, the only team with a 100% record so far. Simon Wolford's men sit pretty at the top. It wasn't really a pretty game last time out as they got the win at Hull KR, but they did enough, and Aidan Caesar's really pulling the strings there. I mean, Huddersfield have not really brought in that many players from last season. Last season, they were in a last day relegation fight to stay up, so it's incredible the improvement we're seeing from them early on in 2020, and I think a lot of that is down to Aidan Caesar. He's really leading that team around the park well. and he'll hope to do that again against Wigan this week. Wigan, I thought, really did improve last week against Hull FC, winning that game on Sunday. I think I hadn't been too impressed by Wigan so far, even though they'd won 2 of the first 3. But last weekend I was impressed. They really turned it on against Hull in parts of that game, and they go to Huddersfield now with a bit of confidence against obviously Huddersfield team who are absolutely buoyant at the moment. This is another really difficult one to call. I'm going to tip the Giants to make it 4 wins from 4. I just think they've got the momentum. I think it will be close, but I'm going to tip them to edge it by 4. Jack has also gone with the Giants. He's gone Huddersfield by 6. So we're both favouring the Giants in that one in what should be an interesting game. Next up we have Hull FC against Catalans. Now, Hull FC started the season really well. They picked up a win against Leeds, brilliant on the opening day of the season. They did enough to beat Hull in the Hull derby, but since then they've lost a few players to injury, notably Manu Ma'u, one of their key signings in the forwards. He's expected to come back this weekend. And like I say, since those 2 wins, they've really fallen by the wayside. The second half they really capitulated against St Helens, and then last week against Wigan Wigan in the end won the game quite comfortably, so I'm a bit disappointed with Lee Radford's side there. But like I say, a few men coming back. They face a Catalans team who've had a week off. They were scheduled to play St Helens last week, but obviously Saints are in the World Club Challenge. The week before that, Catalans had got a morale boosting win against Castleford at home. Israel Folau really starring in that one. They've got Maloney, they've got the Tompkins brothers. They really have got a star-studded team of Catalans, and I think they'll go to the KCOM and I think they'll pick up a win. Again, tough to call. It's almost a flip of a coin. It's early in the season, 2 very evenly matched teams, but I just fancy Catalans to get over the line in this one. Obviously, their away form down the years has not been good, but I'm going to go with Steve McNamara's men. I'm going to tip them by 2 points. Jack disagrees with me. He's gone Hull FC by 10. Obviously feels that Hull will be too strong on home soil. Finally, the final game of this weekend is Salford-Wakefield. Now, another intriguing clash. Salford have been very much hit and miss this season. Last weekend against Leeds, they were probably the better side for the first 40 minutes, and the second half they just couldn't get going. Ill discipline cost them. They just got on the wrong side of the referee in that game, and Leeds were able to exploit that. And they come up against a Wakefield side who have been, I think they've been okay so far. Apart from that opening weekend performance where they were really poor against Hull KR, they were really good against Warrington to get that win a couple of weeks ago. And they were unlucky against Castleford. They were in the game. A couple of sin binnings really cost them. But they'll go to Wakefield. Wakefield will go to Salford, and I think they really fancy the chances, and I fancy the chances. I'm going to tip Chris Chester's men to win this one. I've gone Wakefield by 4. Jack again disagreeing with me. He's gone with home advantage. He's gone Salford by 8. So they're mine and Jack's predictions this weekend. Hopefully Jack will be back next weekend and we can do them together. But yeah, like I said, there are predictions for this weekend. Let us know in the comments who you're tipping. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.